So I was watching a documentary, Pete, a couple of weeks ago about a British football manager, Sir Alex Ferguson, a documentary called Never Give In.
Okay, a great manager.
Absolutely. And I just was so impacted by a particular aspect of his story.
Okay.
So his first ever opportunity to manage a football team full time was to manage a little team called Aberdeen, which is a small city, I think, on the east coast of Scotland.
Yep. Not known for football prowess, are they?
Not at all. So he arrives there. This team doesn't even have their own training pitch. They train on the park.
Right.
The first job the players do is clear all the muck off the park. Oh, and the other place they train is on the beach.
Wow.
And they play until the tide comes in.
Right.
And it washes over the goalposts. And so he arrives there full of courage, confidence, boldness, and says to this team, we can win the league. And they're a team that wins the cup every 6 years. And the players play for money and the fans are happy with that level of success. But he has this courage and confidence based on he believes in himself. He believes in his managerial technique, that he can make this team a winning team.
So basically, they've in the cup. By that, we mean a sort of knockout competition. But the big prize, the league, they actually nowhere near it.
They couldn't ever imagine themselves winning and beating the big teams like Rangers and Celtic.
Yeah. So and they've got no training pitch. I find this fascinating. You presume that they've got something because they were playing in the sort of the same league as
they're playing in the Premier League, but they're practicing on a park.
You think it doesn't make sense, does it?
But what gripped me was this: is his confidence.
Yeah.
His certainty in who he is and what he could achieve,
and his ability to help others change, I guess.
Absolutely, and I think it was. What impacted me was, again, that most of the time when people exhibit that kind of confidence, they kind of get cut down to size quite quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, I think. So, what was the outcomes of this? Because I've just, I know some of it because obviously I'm a football fan, but you've intrigued me because some of this background story I don't know. Because what did he manage to do with Aberdeen?
He managed to get them to a place over time where they won the league 3 times, and they won the European trophy, and he kept on doing that, and we know in history he did that with Manchester United. Yeah,
so he moved on then and became, that's where more well known for, isn't it, is actually took over Manchester United, one of the biggest clubs in the world, because of his track record, presumably.
With Aberdeen.
But he'd actually showed his confidence and methods worked in basically any situations, because actually take a group like that and actually help them to have a confidence and a belief that would carry them forward to win the major trophy is amazing, isn't it?
It really is, and I think that when normally you guys like him get cut down to size.
Yes, they do.
I mean, we use phrases like tall poppy syndrome, don't we? Cut everybody down to size, because I think we're really nervous of that kind of belief.
Yeah,
we think it's arrogant, we think it's prideful, and we don't think it's right, and we're looking often for ways to cut people like that down to size, and I guess there's a sense in which, to protect ourselves from ever being cut down to size, we practice something like false humility. We pretend we're less than we are, but he doesn't pretend he's less than he is. He says, "This is who I am. This is what I can do. This is who we can become."
Yes,
and I found that incredibly.
It's stimulating, isn't it? So, and I guess it leads us on. We're talking mainly about church structures, church leadership. Is where do we find that confidence within church leadership, or have we got more of a culture of false humility? And I think we're going to explore that, because I couldn't dare to say that of myself, because that would appear like it's pride or arrogance or overconfidence. In English we have the phrases like, "Oh, he's too big for his boots." Do you see what I mean? It's the sense of actually people who actually believe in themselves actually are, going back to last episode, cast under suspicion, aren't they?
Yeah. Who is that kind of shame statement? Who do you think you are?
Yes.
Whenever we come across people who truly believe in themselves and in their greatness and what is possible, what they believe is possible through them, We want to knock them off their pedestal, or we criticize them, or we're frightened of their courage or their confidence.
It's very common in particularly, in European nations, this tall poppy syndrome. I think actually you lived in Denmark for a while and you said actually they had a specific name for it there.
I believe it's called Yanta. The Yanta law, the idea that everybody stays at the same level.
Yes. And when I did some work in another European nation, they were saying actually that, you're not allowed to say you're good at something. No, just something as simple as that. They say, no, you can't say you're good at something because there's a presumed comparison that you're saying you're better than somebody else. And I think that's you're not allowed to stand out from the crowd, so to speak. So, and in this nation, it was very strong within the church. I thought, okay, so there was no aspiration, if you like, into specific gifts where you could excel in a specific gift because you weren't allowed to excel. It was all very, all even, because they're, I guess, concerned about people feeling inferior, and obviously because they assume if you're saying you're good at something, you're assuming superiority, which means inferiority. But actually, equality, one of the great things about freedom and equality is everybody can grow to be the size that God's called them to be and keep on growing without a threat to everybody else, without superiority. So equality actually doesn't have inferiority or superiority within its framework, but that's another aspect of freedom, isn't it? They get to this place where you create a free culture where they're free from the suspicion and free from comparison. I think comparison is a very, very strong reality for a lot of church leaders. Classically, you and I would have known this. How big's your church? The first question often asked if you've got a group of church leaders in a room together is, how big's your church? Because you need to know where you fit into the order of size of church almost.
But is that thing of in the church being free to say, I'm great at something, feels absolutely impossible. But God really does believe in us. And I love what, like Chris Valentin, the prophet from Bethel Church, says that the prophetic gift is to call out the greatness in people.
Yes.
And
it's the God-given greatness in them, isn't it? And it's the God-given gift. It's we look back at the stories of we've got Caleb. We're thinking about the story of Caleb and Joshua. The two of the 12 spies sent into the promised land. When the Israelites have come out of Egypt, God's promised them the land. Caleb and Joshua believe, with God we can do this. And that Christian confidence is not just I'm confident in myself, I'm confident because of God in me, God's gifting, God's calling. And Caleb and Joshua say, look at all the experience we've had with God. Our God will surely give us victory, therefore
we can.
And then, but the other 10 spies said, oh no, we're grasshoppers. And that's what we would regard as false humility, is that's a disregard of God in the equation almost, to say that so you think you're grasshoppers? God doesn't call you grasshoppers. He doesn't call us grasshoppers.
Yeah, it's false because it's pretending.
Yes.
It's pretending to be what you are not. Actually, true humility is what Caleb exhibits. We can surely do this. That's actual humility because he's believing who he is in God. He's believing what God has promised, and he's believing in the ability of God to give them. False humility is pretending. It's not truthful. It doesn't own the truth, but it's actually really hard for us to really believe in God's assessment, to really have that humility where I'm not going to pretend, I'm going to be seen, I'm going to be known, and I'm going to dare to wrap words around how God views me and what God calls me.
Yeah, I think we're really frightened of pride, aren't we?
Yeah.
I remember when I was, early Christian, you think, God opposes the proud. You think, I don't want to be opposed by God. Therefore, I make sure I'm not proud about stuff, and not proud. That pride doesn't feature in my life. And I remember because you heard me say, I'm actually was successful in life. I was successful in all sorts of realms of life, in sport and intellectual and stuff like that. But I thought within Christianity initially I'd sort of dumb that down a bit,
But why did you feel you had to dumb it down?
Well, I think it was a sense of, it was because it was interpreted as pride, and I just suddenly discovered, but what I got liberated from that. God really liberated me from it himself through some very specific interactions. And there's a verse I'd like to read that just I think is really helpful in this, because I would like to suggest that there's good pride and bad pride.
Right.
So God does oppose the pride, but actually listen to this in Galatians chapter 6 verse 4. It says, each one should test his own actions. Now most of us would actually say, okay, well, we're looking for the downside. What am I not good at? What do I need to create? Each one should test his own actions. It says, then he can take pride in himself. Isn't that amazing? I thought, wow. So, this is not just take pride in other people, but take pride in himself now this is the key, without comparing himself to somebody else. So it's my ability to be great doesn't stop somebody else's ability to be great. And this danger of comparison. But if I substitute the word delight for pride, so do I take delight in what God has called me to be? Because that's I'm taking effective delight in God in that. So, for instance, I delight in my grandchildren. Most people have very little problem with it. Say, I'm really proud of my grandkids. They say, yeah, of course you are. But if I suddenly say you've got grandkids, I know you haven't yet, but say we both were granddad. And you said, my grandkids are really good at this. And I go, well, they're probably not good at my grandkids. All of a sudden, actually, that damages our relationship, doesn't it? But if you say, because I can take joy in your delight in your grandkids, and you're saying, well, my grandkids are really good at music or something like that, or dance. And I say, well, my grandson's a really great footballer. And you say, wow. So if we can enter into each other's delight, then I think that's a helpful pride. But when we start to compare one another, that's the bad pride. And I think the origin of pride that we're concerned about biblically is where Satan was prideful, he compared himself to God. He wanted to be above God. He wasn't satisfied with his God-given extraordinary gift and privilege that he had. So there is a pride that we have to say, no, I'm resisting that. But actually, there's a sense of pride and delight that we need to embrace within our lives and within the lives of other people.
Do you think I think it's the gut reaction we feel when someone says, I'm actually great at that. I'm really good at that.
Yeah.
I can do that. There's something in us that thinks that isn't humility. That sounds like arrogance. And I think because we have this reaction in us, we kind of create environments and cultures where it's actually we demean ourselves, we put ourselves down, we tell jokes about ourselves to make sure that no one thinks we're too much. Even the belief that I've heard that if I say I'm great, am I taking from God's greatness?
Yes. And I think we also deflect encouragement when other people say, that was a really great sermon. So it wasn't that good. No, and I've actually heard teaching in another European nation where they said, we've been taught that if somebody comes up and tells us that sermon was really good, we say, no, we rebuke it because that's a pride. So we rebuke encouragement. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
And then so we then get other people to not view us in the light. And if we read the Bible clearly, God delighted in his Son. This is my Son, with him who I love. I'm well pleased with him. Jesus hadn't performed ministry at that point, and I think it's something I do with our students here, particularly in school. I've done it with the church as well. But getting them to say the words, God would say to them, I'm God's Son, who he loves and who he's delighted with. You're thinking, wow. And it's really difficult to get Christians to say that sometimes. I'm not allowed to say that, am I? But it's true, isn't it? But there's a stronghold, and I believe there's a massive stronghold of false humility that keeps Christians slaves, not being free to be all that God has called them to be, because we have somehow embraced a false humility as if it's true humility. Well, actually, I believe false humility is actually an aspect of bad pride, because it's actually placing my opinion above God's opinion. So if God says to me, I love you, so I'm not really worth loving.
I'm just a worm.
Yes, I'm just a worm, and God's love is towards me because of who he is. God loves me because of who he is. So to deny that he loves me is a denial of who God is. It's actually putting my thoughts above his. It's trusting my thoughts above God's thoughts, and that in itself is pride.
Yes, and false humility is actually a really dangerous thing.
Yeah, very, very dangerous.
I mean, I just take that story of the manager, Alex Ferguson. If he comes in and thinks, you know what, I'm just going to armour up, protect myself, I'll use false humility so that no one thinks too much of me, and says to the guys, actually, I'm not that great. I don't think we can really win anything. I've got no experience. This is my first job. I don't really believe we can. They are never, ever going to achieve in that time free league championships and a European trophy. It's never going to happen because somebody has to believe that we can.
Yeah, they have to believe that they can change. It's like my work as a GP, as a medical doctor, false humility would say, "Oh, I'm not a good doctor." Well, if I had a consultation, you come into my and you say, "Oh," and I say, "Oh, before you start, you need to know. Actually, I'm not very good at this." Well,
you're going to leave.
You'd leave, wouldn't you? Because my confidence in my ability is very important for the trust for you to gain access to the resources I have available to you. But if I dismiss that, it's nonsense, it's a silly idea.
I mean, I think in reality what I would probably do is I would be polite and sit there, but I would not be getting that prescription and I wouldn't be taking that advice.
No, you wouldn't trust the outcome, would you?
No.
You just sit there thinking, I'm not going back to see him. He doesn't think he's a good doctor. Why should I trust him? So false humility doesn't help trust develop.
And so I was saying as well, it's a journey in terms of becoming people who believe in the assessment of heaven.
Yes.
God has said something about us. He believes in us more than really at the beginning. We believe in ourselves. And there's a journey of understanding just how amazing we actually are in Christ and just how amazing it is to have God in us. And that's a journey. And it's a journey that happens in community too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like someone said, that another word for the prophetic is encouragement on fire.
Yes, I like that. I've not heard that one. That's good. Yeah, I think that ability to then, delight in other people. I'm proud of so many people within Eastgate, the whole church, because I like to express that delight. And I just on the way in today, I saw a guy I haven't seen him for a long time, to have a chat to because of lockdown. And I just went up to him and said, "I just want to I really appreciate you. You're a real pillar in this church. You make a difference." And he says, "Oh, I don't do much." In one sense, I know he doesn't. He doesn't think he does much, and he wasn't dismissing it. But,
no,
but he wasn't that. He said, "But what you do really counts." He says, "Thanks."
Yeah, I remember. It's actually 4 years ago. I think it was January the 8th, 2017. There was a meeting here at Eastgate, and it was one of the earliest talks I ever did about my own story, and I called it "God Doesn't Do Magic," and it was about my own freedom, really, and how God had brought freedom to me. And at the end, you stood up and said, "That was heaven's wisdom." And a little while later, you said, "That was world class." And I think I heard that, and it raised my view of myself, and I suddenly thought, you know what, I could be a world-class communicator. I could be, I can grow into this. I'm accessing heaven's wisdom, and it broke lies, maybe a false humility of not realizing who I was, but it was definitely something that happens in community as somebody sees something and calls it out. Because I think false humility is a wonderful armor. If I put myself down, if I negate myself, if I demean myself, if I tell jokes about myself, then really I'm not really responsible for anything.
No.
You can't expect anything from me. I can abdicate all responsibility for anything, of any greatness, because really, who am I?
Yeah, I think false humility is a form of discouragement, isn't it, that we embrace? And discouragement is definitely a spiritual stronghold. It's a mindset, and we need to demolish it. And coming back to our last episode, about self-control, one of the biblical imperatives is it says, "Take every thought captive." Now, that ability, but why? To demolish strongholds, these things that are in our mind, and we need to identify them as enemies. Otherwise, we'll just, rather than take them captive to demolish them, we take them captive to own them. This is a great idea. I do myself down. But as you say, I think it can have an appeal to it because, I'm just going to make sure I lower everybody's expectations of me, then I can't fail. And fear of failure is another aspect, I think, that follows on with false humility. And I go back to the spies. I think, look at the consequences of false humility. It robbed the whole nation of their destiny.
It's absolutely huge. And that abdication, being small in your own eyes.
Yes.
Fear, I guess, was another reason for false humility. We're frightened.
Yeah.
Actually, we can't. By saying we can't, it protects us from the risk of having to step out and do something.
Yeah. In the realms of actually praying for the sick at the moment, the healing, actually, that careful. There's this fear of disappointment that is massive, that really directs a lot of people's thinking about healing. Oh, careful! We don't want to raise the hopes too high because people will be disappointed. And I thought, as a medical doctor, I thought, well, that's a terrible way of trying to go about life, because it's like with people with, I think of stuff from my medical experience from 30, 40 years ago. We dared to hope that it could get better. Now we put, new treatments and experimental stuff in front of people, saying, look, we don't know if this is going to work 100%, but we're going to make advances, and we've made advance bit by bit, so that actually becomes normal practice now. So I think this idea that I think perversely, in one sense, trying to help, maybe even kindly thinking, well, we'll keep you from disappointment, actually it demolishes hope.
And I like how what you said there, over medical practice and advancements took time.
Yes.
Causing a local church to cast off a false humility and embrace the true humility, which is, I'm going to believe God, I'm going to believe in the name he calls me by, I'm going to believe in the destiny he's got for me, is more than a rah-rah speech.
Yeah, I think, it's a transforming of the mind, which and the mindsets usually take time. And just as we're talking about it, I've got a thought that come to mind, that God actually talks about the gift of encouragement in Romans chapter 12. You can ask for it. And I remember when I first started to preach regularly in the church, when I started to lead the church, and you suddenly have this responsibility to preach regularly, because I had sort of sporadic opportunities to preach before that, not many. I thought I better make sure I'm getting okay at this, decent at it. So I listened to my own sermons, which is quite a painful experience. That's not a fun experience necessarily. You think, do I really sound like that? It's not just a voice. But I recognised that there were some bits of my preaching where I was doing really well, but there was areas of it where actually it was lacking. And I realised I was really good at the rah-rah stuff, but not the encouragement, not the true encouragement, of the people to do it. It was a rallying call, but maybe we can win, but actually without giving people the encouragement en route to actually enable them to believe they could win. It's just and so I actually asked God for the gift of encouragement. I knew it was something I needed to develop in. And then I also, not did I then just ask for it as a gift, I actually went out of my way to make sure I was encouraging other people, but also myself. Because self-encouragement is actually one of the most important gifts, I think. And I think a lot of people think that encouraging yourself is wrong. To assess your own work is good. But it says here, test your own work and then take pride in it. So, and that's godly, because at the end of every day of creation, God would test his own work and say, actually, this is really good. And I get people to say, hey, it's really good to get to the end of a day. And most people think humility is making sure you find the faults in your day and correct them.
Okay.
That's what true. Well, actually, no, being aware of the faults and registering them that's wise. But actually, the ability to say, I had a really good day today.
I think that's what most of us actually need. Yeah. Is more that sense of, I'm going to encourage myself. I'm going to recognise who I am. God doesn't need me to make myself small and be pointing out all my faults. Actually, he wants me to believe that I'm lovable, that I'm righteous, that I'm worthy, that I'm accepted.
I think I understand this word of leading church. It's fascinating when you ask church leaders how they're doing. And really busy is normally a phrase. It's such a common phrase, I'm really busy. It's almost like busyness is a badge of honour, so I somehow justify myself by being busy. We'd be very suspicious if somebody says, I had a great day, got all my work done, went home, had a bit of a rest, it was easy. I'm doing really well.
Yeah.
We would view that as, I'm not sure he's doing the right job.
Well, because I think it's Brené Brown says, exhaustion is worn as a badge of honour.
Yeah. It is. You think it's so true of church leaders. So I think church leaders would be worried not to say it because their congregation might think they're not working properly. Then that creates its own pressure and expectation. It's internally driven, And I reconciled myself early on when I started to actually. I was leading the church, but when you start to work for the church full time, I thought, you can never finish this job. In the sense of, there's always more work to done. You can always pray some more. You can always read the Bible more. There's another book to read. There's people to call. I think you've got to get to the place where you're satisfied with your day's work and you go to bed happy, content that you've done a good day's work. Sure, there'll be more work tomorrow, but that sense of satisfaction, I think learning the secret of contentment is a really important thing, because that's what Paul talks about. He learnt the secret of contentment, and I think that's probably a subject for another podcast, but I think that's a massive issue that I think false humility keeps us from contentment as well.
Someone said the greatest regret you could have at the end of your life is that you were never really seen, and never really known.
Okay.
And I think false humility certainly does that. It is a huge ton shield to protect us, like you say, from disappointment. But I think as well, the goal isn't just to be walking around saying I'm great. This proper assessment of self is for the benefit and the blessing of other people. Because if I know who I am and what I carry, and I carry it for the good of others, I pour it out generously, radically, courageously, vulnerably. It's not for my own identity.
No, and it's not. We're not going out there with this. Oh, I'm great, but the ability to be that confidence internally, because then makes me confident. I've got resources to give away to other people.
It's about generosity, isn't it?
It enables that generosity, because if I think I've got nothing to give, I give nothing. Again, another story, Bible story, is Peter at the gate. Beautiful. What I love about him is he's confident in what he hasn't got as well as what he has got. So he says, the beggar's sitting there, and he says, he's expecting money from them, basically. And they said, we can't meet that expectation, so we haven't got any of that. And that could be the end of the conversation. His expectations have not been met. But he said, but what we have got, we can give to you. Now, that's confidence. So I know what I haven't got. That's okay. So if I haven't got it, I haven't got it. I can't give something I haven't got. So it's really important. If I haven't got a gift of something, like I haven't got a gift of music, I just can't. So I can't give you that, no matter how hard I work at it. But I have got this gift. And if I recognise that what I've got is gifts from God, then I'm not...
You're not boastful or prideful.
No, I'm just saying, this is what I've got. I'm confident God's given it to me, therefore I can give it to you. And it enables the resources of heaven to flow more freely. Whereas false humility is, I haven't got anything to give you. So
nothing.
Nothing flows.
And this is about flow, because I think another quote was about burnout. And they said, people don't burn out because they give away too much. No. It's because they give away what they never had.
No, that's
the root of burnout, according to one writer. And I think when we're humble, there's no pretense. I know who I am. I know what lane I'm running in. I know my gifts. I know my limitations. I know where I'm connected in the body. Then I can freely give. And it's like that glass illustration. The Holy Spirit's pouring in, it's pouring out. And then as a community, we're impacting. And I would just say that the humility glorifies God. When we say, actually, this is who I am, it glorifies God. And I think it's Chris Valentin, again, from Bethel Church, said about when you look at a painting and you say, that's a rubbish painting, I can't understand what that is, it's all smudgy. Yeah. You actually undermine the artist who created the painting. But when you look at a painting and say, that blue, you've really captured the sky, look at that, look at the sea, it's amazing. The artist is glorified, is celebrated. And I think when we're falsely humble and we demean and put ourselves down, and we're fishing for compliments because we're not really sure inside of who we are, then actually it's not glorifying God. No, it's not honouring who he's made us to be in his image.
No. Again, Jesus declared himself humble. That was interesting. I'm humble, he said. Now, immediately, in most people's eyes, say, you're not humble if you call yourself humble. You see, that immediately means you're
not allowed to say that.
No, not allowed to say you're humble. But Jesus did. I'm humble. Learn from me. And Jesus was supremely confident in who he was. I am the way, the truth, and I am the resurrection. I am this. I thought that's humility. He says, I am. I know what I am. And he knew what he came to do, and he knew he came to sacrifice his life and lay it down. Because that's what humility enables you to do. True humility says, I'm this, therefore I can give it away. I can give my life away. I'm not trying to become something.
I already am something.
So I'm not trying to scramble up this ladder of identity and achievement, and that's got to be my focus. If I am, then I just am. I don't have to try and hard to be it. I just can be, and I give away.
And I think actually interesting you say that, because I think what false humility does, it allows you to climb up the ladder. You put yourself down enough, no one notices you. There's no one going to cut you down. But actually your ambition is to get to the top. True humility, like Jesus says, the Spirit of the Lord is on me.
Yeah.
He's anointed me. And I'm thinking, what about churches that are full of men and women who, as a community, say the Spirit of the Lord is on us.
Yeah.
He's anointed us. We're going to open blind eyes. We're going to raise the dead. We're going to cleanse lepers. We're going to set captives free. We're going to see prisoners released. We're going to preach good news to the poor. That's who we are. And that's not their identity, because their ultimate identity is, do you know what, I'm just loved. But I get to do this.
Yeah. No, I think it's such a big subject. It's massive. It's like, I was thinking of another aspect of the kingdom is actually driving away demons, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, you'll think, I can't do that. Well, they won't go.
Yes.
they know, and they say, well, I know Jesus and I know Paul, but who are you? Do you see? They say, I know these people, and they were, they know they can get rid of us. We're scared of them. That demons should be scared of us. I always think it's somewhat bizarre when we're scared of demons. Do you see what I mean? I'm aware of them, but they should be frightened of us. And hopefully they know I'm coming, they knew Jesus was coming. If we say, no, I don't think I can deal with that, then they're going to run riot. And we don't want that. So this confidence in our God-given authority as well, which is another subject we need to come on to, is massive. Has God given me authority? Yes, he has. Well, if I'm not confident I've got it, I'll never use it.
You're not going to use it.
So if I deny I've got it, I'm not going to use it. It's like the older brother in the prodigal son. He said, I haven't got anything. Don't even get a goat. So he didn't have anything. But his dad said, it's all yours. But he said, no, I haven't got anything. He denied who he was, didn't he, the older brother? He denied his inheritance.
What he had access to.
So he didn't enjoy it, and nobody else got to benefit. And
I think that's a great way to land on that. For individual believers, go on a journey with God. I'm going to be seen. I'm going to be known by the assessment of heaven and what he says about me. And I would sort of say for whole communities, to kind of join that Alex Ferguson analogy, that documentary, we can win the league.
Yes.
We can be who God has made us to be, and we can do what he's called us to do. We can be those people who see extraordinary breakthroughs, because really that false humility is robbing the church of her courage and confidence and boldness, and we need to be truly humble. Stop pretending we are amazing.
Yeah.
Stop pretending we are amazing.
Yeah, we are, and God's made us that, and therefore we're not going to deny what God has done.
Yes.